Hello and welcome. My name is Steve Pugh. Every week I try and speak to interesting people on something called the Growth Strategy Podcast. And my background is all business strategy, growth, that kind of thing. But actually one of the things that I think is often missing for real world people, real world businesses, is to speak to people like them who've been on the journey, who have really good kind of information and knowledge to share, or actually they're just really interesting people that I think it's worth kind of, talking to for 30, 40 minutes. So last week I spoke to a guy called Tim Ward, who's an entrepreneur who's got a startup, which is great. Today, I'm going to introduce you to Ian. We're going to go through a really good conversation for 30, 40 minutes. Ian is a business leader, has been for a long time. He also got into podcasting years before I did or anyone else did. And actually, back in the day, he actually asked me to be a guest, which I never ended up doing. But actually, it's brilliant to kind of role reversal. But there's so much experience and stuff that I want to talk through. Also, an incredibly popular guy as well. So hopefully, a comment, I'll ask Ian at the appropriate time any comments that kind of come in. And yeah, hopefully you'll join us for a really interesting conversation. So, Ian, you're now live. Would you like to say hi to everyone?
Good afternoon, Mr. Pugh. Hello, everyone.
And I'm going to start right from the start. I love your background, by the way. Very like Premiership footballer, almost.
I won't be putting my boots on ever again, I don't think, Steve.
Are you Newcastle fan, Sunderland, neither?
Sunderland fan, Stephen. Sunderland, come on now.
I thought, but I wanted to play dumb just in case I got it wrong.
Well, surely my content on social may mention SCFC now and again, or actually South Shields as well, because South Shields are doing really well.
Oh, cool. But I must also, one of my favourite things is just winding people up because I know how much Mackems hate Newcastle and vice versa.
Yeah, it is a bit of a religion up here, isn't it?
So it's funny. So for people at home, what will be interesting today? So we're going to talk about business stuff. We're going to talk about Ian's career. We're going to talk about podcasting. Probably going to talk about tech because people always ask me about stupid stuff that I spend money on, like lights and sound curtains and cameras and stuff. So Ian is the perfect guest to hopefully appreciate, because I'm intrigued by that microphone you've got in front of you.
Yeah, this is a really cheap microphone. This is a Samsung Q2U. Often a starter microphone by podcasters, but I've got Rode mics here, and I just love this because it's so versatile. It literally plugs straight into your laptop. So obviously a Rode mic will plug in via XLR cables into mixers and stuff. I can just whack this straight into a laptop and it's 50, 60 quid and you're good to go. And it sounds great.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And actually one of the big things that people often miss is treating your room and getting your space right is more important than the actual kind of anyway, we'll come to this later on. I don't want to bore people right at the start.
You love it, man. You love it.
I love it too much is the worry, because the other thing is...
We know.
What's quite funny actually is that I had a Teams call with a client in Turkey before, and I'm now embarrassed that when I have a regular call and there's a background and there's a 65-inch TV and just stupid stuff in the background, I actually put on a fake background to hide what they think is a fake background.
Right. Wow.
And it's so it's now the point where I'm ashamed, but I love it too much. Anyway, this is all about you. So would you like to tell people a little bit about yourself, just a summary before we kind of dive deep on Ian Farrar?
Yeah, sure. I'm the founder of Far North, you can see, and a company called Carpaway as well, and the host of the Industry Angel Business Podcast.
Fantastic. So where were you kind of born and raised?
South Shields boy, or well known as a sand dancer. So yeah, all my life been in South Shields, apart from working abroad now and again for different companies.
Oh, cool. I've had a few sand dancers on. There's a guy called Aaron Clark that's a finance guy who's from South Shields. And no.
You're doing the American thing now where someone says, oh, England, you know the Queen, right?
But the funny thing is, and this is almost true because the Northeast does have a very relatively small business network.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of does know each other. That's the funny thing. So,
yeah, and it's lovely. You've got an amazing network. We really do have some great friends, don't we? And we all kind of help each other through and support each other's stuff, which is great. There's no kind of competitiveness. It's a lot of collaborations.
But I think that's one of the things that I've almost been playing with a little bit is that so I think, you've got a relatively small business community, compared to London and whatever.
Yeah.
But actually, because the opportunity is so big and so many people are aiming to go big, so your podcast will go around the world. I think it is that camaraderie that actually it's helping other people, because we're trying to break America and India and Nigeria and, actually kind of do well, that I think there is a really good kind of support network. Anyway, so every week I try and ask people, or I think it's nice to find out a bit more about you and your background and what you like at school, purely because when these all get clipped up and go onto YouTube and they'll stay there for kind of eternity, the hope is that someone in, I don't know, 5 years' time, whoever might be a teenager now, from South Shields, looking to maybe thinking about starting a podcast, thinking about starting a business. And the more that they can relate to people from their area who've kind of got on a journey that they relate to. So, for instance, people always think, oh, you have to be brilliant at school to go into business. And the answer is no, you don't. But it's that honest sharing of kind of background, I think is really, really valuable. So would you be happy to kind of walk us through your school days? What were you like? Were you good, a naughty kid? I think you're a naughty kid.
It's really funny. I'm laughing there. I'll digress a second. I did a talk for a school, actually my old school, last year. I think it was before everything went crazy. And a young guy come up to me about a month after I gave the talk. He said, "You're Ian, aren't you?" I said, yeah. So I loved that talk you did at my school. He went, I was in sixth form at the time. I went, are you not anymore? He went, no, I quit the next day. And I went, what? And he said, yeah. I heard what you said about, how you left school and you wanted to get straight into apprenticeships and earning money, and, learning wasn't for you and you wanted to learn on the job and do day release. So again, I've started an apprenticeship. I quit that week. And he said, I reached out to a few people that I knew, or my dad knew, and got me apprenticeship the next, and I'm loving it.
Wow.
He said, I'm absolutely loving it. And I was like, ooh, close call.
but it's true. And it's one of the things that I remember all the way through school and stuff. All people champion was education, degrees, And ironically, the more you kind of go through that process, you realize they're not as valuable as people think. I had this chat with my wife yesterday walking into town. It was almost that what you want is good work ethic, good passion, good commitment, whatever. And you can't be taught that. That is something that you have or you don't have. And ballsy move.
I think some of the stuff we're doing right now as well is brand new, Steve. So you can't be taught, because we're learning on the job, especially in my role. What we do here in Far North is we're trying to be really cutting edge with a lot of the social stuff, a lot of the content creation like we're doing right now. You kind of teach that. And even talking to marketing, I do some guest lectures now and again for universities, and I'm talking to students within marketing, and they're learning quite often dated techniques or older books. Mm-hmm. And I know some of the books, are timeless, but sometimes I get shocked at the things that they're not being told.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But in terms of my school, I was rubbish, Steve. I was terrible. And what's really funny as well, I kind of messed about a lot at school. And then 40 years later, I'm now the vice chair of my first primary school, Catholic school in South Shields here. And when I first got there as a school governor, my reception teacher was still there, who used to smack me as a kid, because you could smack people back then in the 80s. And I still had it in for her. And I came through the door and she knew me and I knew her.
That's because I moved away quite young. So I never really saw my teachers in Sainsbury's or whatever. But I can imagine did you enjoy school? Was it a good fun time or not? Or?
Secondary school, I really didn't. I didn't like learning, and I think we've got a lot to learn here in the UK. I don't open a massive, kind of worms or jump on a soapbox. But as I say, I am a school governor, and I do. I feel I've got a daughter who's 12, so I watch her education. I mean, example being today, I drove her into school. She had triple maths today. Yeah. She had double maths in the morning, in the afternoon, another math lesson. And the focus on math is just, I can understand, I know why, I've seen the figures and stuff, but you pick a country like, Finland, for instance, who are much less kind of laid back, but they're at the top of the rankings, because they're not so prescriptive of what children need to do. They're not ranked, they're not put in streams. Even the teachers are quite self-autonomous in schools. So, I didn't like it because it was just putting me into a box, and I don't care who Henry VIII's wives are or the capital of Peru. If Neville Timecodes watching, that's a private joke. I want to know stuff that I'm really interested in, because that's where we learn.
Is it Lima, by the way?
Well done.
But I agree with it, because one of the things that I used to find is that whenever you give someone a label, labels stick. And I can't remember what they used to call it, but when I went to school, it was also a Catholic school. You had like extension set, then you had 1, 2, 3, and I can't remember what they called it, but there was the kids that maybe weren't as fast as the others.
Yeah.
But as soon as you put someone in that class and everyone knows it, they then start to play that character that they're never going to help them
Yeah.
grow out of it.
Yeah.
But I 100% agree with you.
That's a really good point. I was born in August, and I was always a young boy at school, and it started really early. And my mum used to always say to me, I wish you'd been born in September and you'd been the next year and been a lot more mature than.
Can I throw out a really stupid stat? I don't know how much you read, but there's an author called Malcolm Gladwell. Does loads of like interesting books. And he talks about he talks about American ice hockey players that made it to the NHL. I almost said NFL, which would be stupid, but anyway. And actually, almost regardless of talent or skill level or where they were coached or whatever, the biggest driver was actually when they were born. And it was all to do with that when you look, it'll be the same at Sunderland or any football club or whatever. If you're born in August, you're in the same class as someone that's arguably a lot older than you, a lot stronger than you, whatever. That when you're constantly then for the next 15 years compared side by side against these dudes, they're always going to be bigger, stronger, faster on average. But that plays a massive difference throughout your school. So I should really resent my brother that was born 23rd of September. I'm a June boy, so I'm at the opposite. Yeah. But I think what you're saying is completely true. And likewise with academics, if you're born in September, you in theory have 9 months more development than people that don't. And that's really bad if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so how did you like go through school to the point where, like, did you do A levels? Did you get a job? How did you?
Yeah, as soon as I left, I'd kind of realized that I should have been actually doing some work in terms of revising. So I went straight back on night classes and had to resit GCSEs to get into the college or the course that I wanted to do. So I started work and then doing day release, like an apprenticeship sort of scheme, but doing day release. So I had to do a BTEC first certificate because I didn't have enough to do my ONC before going into HNC. And then I also did A levels on an evening as well. So really when I left school, I thought, what have you just done? You just absolutely blew it, man. And then I had to so this is what I'm saying to my kids, don't do what I did and have to catch up on evenings when everyone's playing football and going out and I'm back in night school, trying to catch my qualifications back up.
But I must have, anyone that has been through that, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you've had almost a setback, if you're strong enough to fight through it, for me, that's where you get your drive and your passion from that probably still burns inside you now, that actually in many ways gives you an advantage because a lot of people don't have that. So I think it's it can be a horrible time to kind of go through, but actually, that could be part of the reason why you've done so much is just that.
What was really interesting is that I studied engineering and I was atrocious, Steve. I know that's your background. I was absolutely
I'm rubbish as well. Don't tell me.
Honestly,
they might stop paying me.
The thing with me is I worked for NEI at the time, and you had Parsons, Clark Chapman's and Railroads, big engineering institutions here in the Northeast who were then subsequently taken over by Siemens. And before that, Rolls-Royce actually part of the group. And I was a very small fish in a huge pond of absolute rock stars. I'd be sitting next to people with PhDs and masters and obviously degrees. And I'd be sitting there like thinking really lost and feeling quite inadequate, that I was just terrible. And I remember reaching out to a guy who was in a different department to me. And I'd heard him talk on communication meetings, toolbox talks, town halls, that sort of stuff. And I loved the guy. I was really impressed by the way he was. And this was before mentorships were a thing. Mm-hmm. And I went and had a chat with him. I said, "Have you got 5 minutes?" And I said, "Look, I love what you do. I'm over in the other building doing engineering. And to be honest, I'm not very good at it." And he went, "What do you want?" I went, "I want your job." And he said, "Well, that's cool." He said, "I want my boss's job." And he said, "Well, maybe I could bring you over and get you there." And he became my kind of unofficial mentor, but I managed to get a sort of secondment over in that department, which was commercial. And it was all about sales and, generating relationships, having real talks, not just playing with Excel spreadsheets and trying to do 3D draftsman's drawings. And it was just something that I just excelled in. I absolutely loved it. I was buzzing. I was absolutely buzzing. And that was it. I was away, because I'd found something that fitted.
I'm the same. I found at uni that it was funny because when you go from school to uni, that's how I found it, was that you were the big fish in the small pond to suddenly you're in a much bigger pond but it was the diversity of the people. So, for instance, we had a large number of the people on the course were from China, and people different backgrounds, and they would just blitz like they were like computers. They would just blitz
Yeah.
the maths and whatever. I was embarrassed at how bad I was compared to it. But as soon as you ask a group activity for leadership, creativity,
Yeah.
how do you solve this? How do you bring people together? How do you organize people? They couldn't do it. And actually, I found my niche. I like talking as well, but actually, so it's good to understand it, but I know I'm not very good at it. And that's where I built my whole career around actually. But I do like talking to people. I like doing creative stuff. I like being techie with stupid stuff that nobody else
Yeah.
wants to do. And again, so it's brilliant that you found what your passion is. I found out what you're good at.
Yeah, and interesting enough, what else I found out was I went to work with an SME. There was 30 of us in a company, and that's again where I really found out my passion, because when I'd worked in some of these real large establishments, I got into an SME, and a friend of mine asked me to join. And I was just amazed. I was like, well, where's the process for this? We don't have one of them. Right, well, who does this bit? Well, you. Right, okay, well, I need one of those. What do I do? We just go and buy it. And I was like, this is weird. Well, I had all these processes and we used to turn like an oil tank, and now we're just very, very agile. And I absolutely loved it. And I joined as BDM. I was then head of sales and marketing. I was then asked to join a board as commercial director. The company went through a management buyout, subsequently acquired. And, that was a 25-year-old business that I joined. And then suddenly, 10 years later, it was acquired. So I'd really found my niche as well within the commercial side, within an SME. And that was it. I was just, again, buzzing,
I must say, I think SMEs don't get enough credit in terms of a uni or at school. It's always Rolls Royce, big companies, big Google, whoever. And actually, for most people, most people do work in SMEs, but the career progression, the potential to make an impact, the potential to develop is miles and miles and miles better in small companies, because bigger companies need structures. But so it depends what you want. But no, fascinating. So how did you then go through to the point where you started your first business?
Yeah, don't get me started on innovation within SMEs, because that's where it is, and that's where all big companies know that. The government knows that, and we should be backing SMEs much more than we are. So I'll come off my soapbox now. I started For North about 6 years ago. I'd come out of that business and I had 7 months off, and I was just really, really stressed out. I often talk about my burnout journey. I burnt out 3 times within my 30s just by pushing too hard. Wow. By working overseas, by working long hours, and just going all in to grow the company. But I also got quite addicted to winning work. It was like gamification. I was incentivized, so bonuses, commission. And then we start, in my 30s, we wanted a bigger house, more children, and you just thinking, if I can just make that sale, and if I can get it in this year, then that means we can buy that house, go on holiday, whatever it is. And I was just push to the point where I kind of burnt out. And when I started this business, I was like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen to me, and that's not going to happen to my team. I really don't want that ever to happen again. So I built this business to help other people's companies grow through sales and marketing. But I built it based on culture. I didn't base it on figures, Steve. I didn't sort of put targets in place. What I wanted to do was just be good to people, have a really good culture, and the numbers take care of itself, just down to relationship building. And it has, it's absolutely. I've never worked a day in the last 6 years. I absolutely love it.
When did you? I'd love to pick your brains on the journey, purely because I speak to a lot of people that a lot of whom are in employment, but they have the burning idea to start a business, all the way through to people that are just started, etc.
Yeah.
But almost at what point did you get the itch? Because obviously, I guess when you had some time off, you could have got another job.
Yeah.
What was it that made you want to take the leap?
I think I'd gone through a really bad time at work, Steve. I literally couldn't work for anybody. I think I became quite unemployable just through working through bad cultures. I'd done a little bit consultancy work after that as well. And I just was seeing companies that are just purely led on short-termism, trying to grow, not looking after the teams, very much figures based. And I just thought, I literally can't do it. It's not me inside. I kind of really grill a colleague because they haven't performed in the way that I wanted them to perform, or the company wanted them to perform. So, everyone will say, I wish I had the opportunity to start a business. I've heard that many times and I just can't do it. Or even things in life, Steve, people will say, I might get married next year, or we're going to move house maybe in 2 years' time.
Manana.
Maybe next. Yeah, of course. And we might have a baby then. And it's just like, now you got to do it now. Because I always didn't want to have that shoulda, woulda, coulda thing, or get into like maybe 60s, 70s. And there's lots of entrepreneurs do start businesses at that age. But I wanted to do it. And I think I was 40 actually. I had a huge mortgage as well and everything. I'd really had mortgage anxiety. I was looking at my bills thinking, I've got to earn this. And then actually when I dialed it back, I thought, well, you don't need all the flash cars and, the nice holidays and things like that. Cut your cloth accordingly. So basically I just looked at what was the least I could live on, and then thought, right, could I start a business and pay myself that? So I always say to people, I'd never earned as little, I'd never worked as hard, but I'd never been as happy.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I used to our career paths are actually very similar, because I worked in sales and business development. And then likewise, I always wanted to buy nice cars. And for me, it was the point of when I was growing up, I could never have had them. Mm-hmm. And actually, so to achieve it was a really big personal achievement. But actually, once I'd done it, I was actually quite happy to sell it and let it go. But actually, when I started this, I did exactly the same. And I actually sold when the second lockdown was going to hit. I had an E-Class Mercedes, and it was just, I wasn't using it, but actually it wasn't making me happy, as where the fulfillment of actually just doing this and talking to you now makes me happy. But it was the point. So I drive a almost 10-year-old Kia Ceed now, and I absolutely love it because it just gets me from house to here. And for me, the joy is in the creativity of trying to do something, even if it fails. But that's where I get my contentment from. It's got nothing to do with fancy things. That being said, it had its place and it helped me in the journey. But now, exactly what you just said, I've never earned less, but actually I'm really enjoying it, which is cool.
It's funny you talk about failure. In this country, failure, it's frowned upon. It's like a scarlet letter if you fail, if you haven't succeeded in the company, or you've tried another company and it's went bust. In other countries, that's kind of like experience. And
in America, they celebrate it a lot more.
Yeah, 100%. And it's quite frowned upon here, and I just can't get my head around it, to be honest.
So you mentioned Far North. Would you like to give a completely 100% sales pitch to what it is and what it does?
We just help people grow, Steve. That's basically how I term it as, through sales and marketing. So the company's split. I do a lot of business coaching, mentoring, and the training side. And then there's another side of the business that kind of gobble up everything that comes out of that. So when I go in to meet people in the organizations, they'll say like, I wish I could have more leads. Right, okay, tell me a bit about the business. And then, so it's like upskilling them, but it's like, right, okay, I think what you need is maybe a new website. Let's have a look at your social media. Let's have a look at your branding, your marketing, digital stuff. So that gets all done as well by us. So sales and marketing for me was hand in glove. In the last business I was in, what I noticed was we'd have marketing companies come in and try to give us a website, but they knew nothing about the company, and they knew nothing how we sold our products, and nothing how we generated leads. And that's, you've got to take a holistic approach to sales and marketing. And there's always been a bit of friction traditionally with those two departments in a bigger organization.
But I think when you properly understand it, marketing is all about understanding the customer, understanding yourself, and understanding the market. And that's what I'd call this morning with a company that of a very niche techie engineering type product, and they want to sell to major multinationals. But the one thing that you need to be able to understand the client and the product to really find the pain point, or find the chat up line, as I call it, to be able to have a message which triggers with them to get their attention. But it's, so I think they are one and the same. They're part of the same dance. So I can 100% agree with you.
Yeah, totally. So really it was about being one trusted partner, being able to do the whole thing and not have to say, well, okay, we do this bit, but I know someone who does that bit. No, let's do it all. And that's tough. That sometimes that's a stretch for us as a business. And sometimes we take on bits that we don't make money from. There's less profit in it, but it gives a better service. And every morning we have our GSD meeting, and can I swear on this?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get shit done. You probably, everyone knows that term. We have a GSD meeting, and every time is, I want A star. That's it, A star quality. That's what I want out of a business. I want our clients to love us. I want to love them. I actually just had a conversation about 20 minutes before we joined and said, if you don't like that particular client, we'll move them on, because I want you guys to enjoy your clients as well. If you don't like any projects, we don't have to do anything we don't want to do. But in the past, it was all about the numbers, and yeah, I know there'll be a pain, but let's sort that out. No, not this time. If there's not a cultural fit with our clients, we'll move them on, because I don't want people worried or getting bullied, frankly. I've seen that in the past as well by clients. That kind of upstairs, downstairs relationship
happens a lot. And even just the expectation of something comes in like 7 p.m. on a Friday, and it's the feeling of, do I do it now or do I wait?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's been on the client. Some people are a lot more understanding than others, but there's a balance there. So when you set up the business, did you have a dream about what it was you wanted to create?
That's a really good question. And I often answer that with this kind of diagram, and then it goes straight and then a bit more curly, because you never start a business and then a nice straight line where you think it's going to go. Your clients coerce you, your own interests do, technology changes, your friends get involved, your family push you, and you listen and you learn. And so this business has just gone round and round and round. And so no, this bit that I'm in right now is nowhere what I thought it was going to be 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I just thought I'd be a consultant, Steve, to be honest. I just thought it'd be me. I'll try and replicate my income and have no staff, because I'd had a lot of problems in the past, and just people not working, good culture. I don't like him, and she said this, and just thought, I just can't deal with people anymore. I'll just be a consultant. And then slowly but surely, something had to give. I had to bring somebody in, because clients start pushing you and coercing you. And actually, I wasn't at that point mentally, if I'm honest, to open another company with people in it. I didn't have the bandwidth. I didn't have the headspace to do it. But now I have, and the gloves are off now. And to be honest, it's not, I can't put the brakes on anymore. It's freewheeling down the hill the way it feels. And I'm just trying to roll alongside it and keep it steered in the right direction. But it's really exciting. I love it.
So almost where you launch, you learn, you iterate, you evolve, you do it again and again.
Yeah.
It's just how things change. So out of interest, so you started the podcast also about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, why did you start the podcast?
So I was a huge fan of audiobooks and internet radio. This is a long story, this one, but I'll try and keep it short. I'm a huge goal setter. I give myself a goal of reading the top 100 books as recognized by the BBC. And I always say to people that if they've ever seen Moby Dick, or if they've ever read Dostoevsky, they're just, are the classics. So what I started doing was kind of cheating a little bit, and I was listening to them as audiobooks. And I also loved internet radio. So I loved some stuff in the States. I'm a huge fan of like conspiracy theories and UFOs and secret bases and stuff. So I was listening to the likes of Art Bell on Coast to Coast, and just love and dial into some of those American radio shows. And then I found that purple icon on my phone, podcasts, Apple Podcasts at the time, and started searching on all the things that I was interested in, particular genres. And that's the way I learn. I've got loads of books. People send me books all the time, and I don't read them, but don't tell them that. I love them. I love having them as ornaments that are all signed. But yeah, that's my chosen way to learn. So I was just bashing through content, 2 times speed. That's how I listen to my podcast. I'm literally just taking it all in quick. And then I thought, if I'm going to start a company, why don't I kind of document it? And, I'm 210 episodes or something. Out of all them episodes, I've spoken to some absolutely amazing people. So I'm also learning as well, quite self-indulgently. I'm meeting fantastic people and learning from them. So, people often say, how do you monetize your podcast and things like that? Well, it was never about money. You don't make money from your podcast. You make money because you have a podcast. Sometimes people will say, well, I know you in that particular field. We like what you do. Can you come and work with me? So it was never something around the money. It was something to document, to create content like you, Steve. It's exciting. It's great, isn't it? You create.
Do you still get nervous? I've got to ask.
I don't, but I'm going to put a massive but in here. So I'm a keynote speaker as well, Steve. So I'll speak at conferences about various topics. I'm a member of the Professional Speaking Association. So I can talk and do lectures, and I'm fine. I'm totally fine. It's like crossing that white line when you're a substitute. You come off the bench and you want to cross the white line. You're excited. But you made me nervous before you came on because you did all your little techniques and you were getting yourself in the zone.
Well, there's a reason why I stand up.
I'm like, oh my word, where's this going?
No, but so for instance, on my LinkedIn, I remember the first time I ever thought I would even try to live stream, because I knew I wanted to do it because I could see the potential of the internet and to hit lots of people and stuff. But when you've got quite a few connections, like they all see it or it all pops up, and if it's garbage, it's scary. It's scary. And even now, like I'm kind of a bit more relaxed now because I've kind of got a better setup and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I still get nervous doing it. But once I kind of relax into it, I really enjoy talking to people. And what I've almost found is that and you probably see this as well. So on your social media, on your LinkedIn, you might have 10,000 people. 9,050 will never comment, never like anything, but they still watch it.
Yeah.
And, they often actually really enjoy it. God knows why they don't like or comment. And then you'll have a few. So hi, Saratha. We've had a few people kind of comment and stuff as well. But then you have your core niche that actually kind of interact and stuff as well. But it's still kind of, hi, Rory.
And so is that a question then, quality over quantity, Steve? So would you rather have 1,000 engaged people, or would you rather have 10,000 as your network?
Well, but this is why I was interested to ask why you launched the podcast, because for me, my core revenue at the moment is consultancy, and actually I'm good at it. And, I wanted to make sure that anything I do, I really throw my heart and soul into it, that I want the quality to be good, with the idea being that, if I was doing this from a crappy webcam with terrible sound, that might reflect on the quality of my service. But the reason I do this is that I have realistically 3 main clients that pay me on retainer every month. If, and that's been going on for like a year, if one of them is to drop off, I might choose to add another, but I wouldn't want to handle 2. So actually, although I pump this out to a lot of people, I'm actually only aiming at maybe 10 people. And everything I do, the live streams on a Friday, the podcast, the interviews, everything is actually about developing relationships with a very small number of people. And that's why I do it. So my way to monetize is in building relationships and stuff. Because the other thing that I found as well is that people like to work with people they see as being consistent. So even if they don't like this and they never watch them, knowing that you're going to show up every week and commit to it and the quality is good, it keeps you on people's radar that from a business development point of view, if they ever want to buy what you're selling, there's a higher chance they're going to pick me because I'm on the back of their mind.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. And it's added value because what you're doing is now you're constantly giving free content and free value to people that they're enjoying, because they're getting half an hour of content and they might get a few golden nuggets, and that might actually change the way they do their business or anything. And that's free, all free.
But the same with you. And it's almost one of the things that I did also notice is that when obviously people don't care about me, some do, but they love to hear your story, and especially your friends love to see you do this. That when I always find that I always clip this up and I'll do it as a separate clip that I repost as like a 10-minute thing. And it's that because when people can catch up with that at any point, it gets the biggest traction. But people love to see their friends do well. So actually it's then as you pick how do you pick your guests, or do people approach you, or a bit of both? I'm just out.
I think I'm going to say, do you pick your friends?
No, but for the podcast, in terms of, do you from a bit, because obviously this is a business strategy related podcast. Do you ever think, well, actually, I'd love to work with those people? So for instance, Greg's brilliant Northeast company. I love the marketing, love everything they do. Have you ever thought, actually, I'd love to work with Greg, so therefore I'm going to approach the CEO at Greg's if he wants to come on? Have you ever used it as a tool?
No, it's an interesting one, this one, because we get 30 requests a week, maybe now, to come on the show, and we probably take 1% of them. Because they'll be just scattergun approach, sometimes they've just changed Ian in the email and it's blue and the rest's black, or awful stuff. And if you're ever in sales and marketing, you'll know how to write a good email. That's not the way to do it. So I'm more interested in who the audience want to hear from, but also topics that the audience want to hear about as well. So I had a guy ask me to do a Brexit show. I've had a Bitcoin request, cryptocurrency stuff, and of course, so I'll go out and look for that particular person. But in terms of reaching out to clients or potential clients in some of these companies, You know what, Steve? I love the underdog, right? I get a bit when I'm talking and I'm in a conference. I'll come off stage and I'll be sitting there and I'll be really intently watching other speakers about how they do and what their stories are, because we all learn from stories. We're all storytellers now. They're all talking about the Amazons of the world and the Jeff Bezos and the Tesla stuff, and I'm like, we've got so many amazing companies here in the Northeast. So I don't really have much interest in some of them ones that turn like oil tankers. I really want to know about the underdogs who are really in the trenches right now. And you know, if I can give them a little bit of a leg up and expose them, then awesome. That's so exciting for me.
Same, because that's the same approach I take. And bear in mind, 99% of businesses are SMEs.
Yeah.
Because the other thing as well is part of the reason why I do this, and I'm sure it's the same for you, it's almost that you get a lot of people that talk the talk, but not many people actually put their cock on the block and actually do stuff. But you know what I mean? But it takes balls to actually, you know, so if you're telling, I remember years ago, I was at a company and we were looking at marketing providers, and there was one lady in particular, I had a meeting with her, and we met in Krispy Kreme in Gateshead near the Metro Centre.
Yeah.
And she was saying, "Oh, Steve, you should really do more video." And I was like, "Well, I do, you might have noticed." But anyway, this was years ago. And she was like, so I said to her, "Well, do you do video?" "Oh, no, we don't do that." I was like, well, why don't you do it if you tell me to do it? "Oh, yeah, but it's more like do as I say, not do as I do," or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was just a lot of people talk the talk, but they don't actually do it. And that's one of the reasons why I also like doing this, because obviously people will see you try and fail, but at least they'll see you try. Whereas where a lot of people don't even get that far. And by the way, Chris Owens is calling us Mr. and Mr. Live stream. So
it's like how cool is Chris though?
He's taken my picture on Wednesday.
Is he really?
He is.
He's good, man. He's good. I tell you the thing about Chris is he makes you feel so relaxed, you know, where these people tell you to smile and move around, and can he shows us, he just lets you do what you want to do. He's cool.
So Chris took my picture I think it was last August. It was pre-lockdown, but he took my picture last year. And when he announced that he was doing his deal, which is tomorrow, Wednesday, maybe space is available if you get in touch. But I appreciate his craft. But again, at this point, you know, you have lots of really great photographers. But when we were saying about the consistency of doing a podcast or a live stream with the Northeast Times every month, I don't have one to hand, but it was just his artwork month after month after month. And obviously when I was doing my PhD, I started a photography business then, but I really appreciate the craft, and that's why I'm shooting at f1.8 now to blur them. But I appreciate it. But then likewise, but with Chris taking my picture on Wednesday, I've got ideas, but I will trust whatever he wants to do, because he's a lot better than I am. But I love working with really good people, and that for me is the fun bit of actually doing this, because actually in previous jobs there was always someone else holding the purse strings, and it'd be like, okay, I want to spend money on this, do it on the cheap. And that's almost part of the reason why I had to learn to do everything, because I had to, because nobody paid. And actually, but now I'm doing my own thing. It's like, I want to work with Chris. I'll probably book photos with Chris every 6 months. But you know, it's that I just love working with good people. So
I'm sure you'll get a few free photographs after all this plug. I mean, I know his stock's really high, but wow, it's just rocketed again, isn't it?
But no, he's a great guy, and it's just I guess I'll see him again on Wednesday. Can we jump back to your podcast, please? Just because people always ask me, and I said I'd ask, and then we can talk about it. So what was your setup when you first set up? Did you just use a phone, or how did you kind of get started?
Basically with the Samsung Q2U, might even be this one actually. I've got about 3 of them. Just that. And actually I've got a Zoom. Have you seen a Zoom? Audio recorder, yeah. So versatile, because you can plug 2 microphones in the bottom, as well as them having their own microphones on the top. So if I was ever at a conference and there was a speaker there, I might have grabbed them at the end and just whipped out my Zoom that was in my man bag and just, you know, put it in front of us. And I literally could grab 10 or 15 minutes, like a roving reporter sort of style. That was pretty cool. And then when I do live stuff in here, when we're allowed to do it in front of an audience, basically I just pop my Zoom on the floor and
wait. You've got like chairs in an audience.
Oh, yeah.
I need to come and play. I just don't, because actually what you'll do is you'll tempt me to spend more money and get a bigger office.
Yeah, like I say, you know, we people come in, we'll have beer and pizza. You probably get about 60, 70 people in. We used to have a great time downstairs.
How big is your place? Where are you based?
I'm in a business center in South Shields. So downstairs there's a big conference room. So we just have that for the night.
I know where you are, actually.
Yeah. Bring beer and pizza in. And we're actually still doing it. I'm still doing South Tyneside business talks for them now, but it's remote. But when we do it downstairs, I'll just sit opposite a guest, a bit like Parkinson or a Wogan. I'm showing my age here. And literally just put that Zoom on the floor between the two of us now and just look down and check the levels. But just put a boom arm in and just put these mics on. It just works fine. You don't need to spend an absolute fortune. And I know lots of people do procrastinate and they'll say like, I'm going to wait till I get a better camera. My lighting's not as good. If the audio is fine and you don't have to spend a great deal, you could do it less than £100. Just start. So, with this mic plugged into my laptop, I was good to go. Just with a pop filter on in a relatively deadened room. And it was probably my kitchen table at the time, I think it was. And then just roving reporter with my Zoom.
See, what was quite funny, so I started a year ago in my spare bedroom. It's like the office. And it's a pretty small room, so it's about 8 feet. I can just about touch both walls. It's small. And then bear in mind, you've got to fit the camera in the middle. But I was getting really bad echo, so what I did was, my wife used to hate it. I go into our bedroom and take the pillows and then stack them up. And it works. And then even before I moved to this room, like, I don't know, a month ago, upstairs, I had 6 Tesco's Basics pillows for like £3. And I would use them just to try and dampen the room. But I kind of went big and expensive in here. But it does work. Because again, it's that element of, if the sound quality is trash, nobody's going to listen to it. So almost, even if the content's really good, it's not going to work. But again, you don't have to spend a fortune. You'd have to spend 30 grand on stuff that you...
No, and I've turned loads of podcast stuff before just because the audio was terrible. I mean, actually in this room, it's a bit echo. You've got boom, bass, foam in the corners and, sound panels everywhere. It's still a bit echoey. But yeah, I've turned off loads of great podcasts before because the sound's been terrible. So I think there's so much content out there. We've got so much to choose from. When people choose yours, I feel quite honored.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it makes that's almost why I do this. And it's like when I do my classroom thing on a Friday morning, live Q&A. It's like when someone tunes in from India or Dubai or something, and you can talk to them. It's mind blowing, and it's just I love it. Anyway. Who's the best guest you've ever had?
Oh wow. I love Ted Rubin. Ted Rubin's probably one of the top marketers in the world. He wrote a book. What was it called? How to look you in the eye digitally, was it? Anyway, Ted has just got a fantastic ethos, values, culture. He's amazing. He spent some time with Seth Godin. Seth, yeah. He used to work at New York with Seth, and he would get in early apparently. So then Ted did as well, and he would just sit next to him and just soak it all up, So Ted was amazing. Jeffrey Moore, who wrote Crossing the Chasm, quite a well-known marketing book. I spoke to Jeff. He was pretty cool. I like Adventurous Steve as well, and that's just me being self-indulgent. I love the people that tell you how they got through.
Have you seen or tried the Jason Fox Wild Tales podcast?
I have, yes.
Sponsored by Talisker, as he always
says. Yes. Apparently it's sponsored by Talisker.
he doesn't stop mentioning it. But anyway, actually I met Foxy at this. It was an oil and gas event, and he's I'm 6'3", but he's a big kind of guy. But I love he's very genuine, and when he asks his guests about their adventures and stuff that they've done, like because he kind of understands it, but then likewise he'll break it down into layman's terms for me.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. But again, it's a way that it gives you live out adventures, and he talks to people that sailed across the Atlantic on their own or whatever, and you kind of get to live it for that 40 minutes. And and this is again one of the big elements of communication, is the fact that you can hear the tone of voice and the storytelling and the funny anecdotes and stuff that you don't get in books, in written word.
I think one of the ones that always stands out, actually, James is a friend of mine now, and he wrote the Ultimate Triathlon because James did row the Atlantic single-handedly, cycled around the world and climbed Everest, the Ultimate Triathlon. And James is just inspirational stuff. And I think when you hang around, if you like, you probably heard the average of the 5 people that you hang with. When you include people like this in your network, you quickly realize, well, I certainly did, that I really haven't done much. So now it gave me a little push to do things. So I'm always setting myself goals because I'm inspired by others. So it's, I love meeting people.
Because what's also fascinating is when you kind of dig into the stories and you kind of connect with them and whatever. Many of the adventurers didn't make any money. they did it because they were passionate about it.
Yeah,
But back to the
yeah.
point of what you were saying about at the start, it's when you really find your passion. It's got nothing to do with how much money you make, and it's just if you have an interest in fun life and good stories and good banter. And back to Wogan. Wogan had some of the most underappreciated banter of like the 80s and
Oh,
90s. I loved him.
absolute legend. If you ever seen him on Eurovision, my word, what a humorous guy. Fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the worst guest you've ever had?
Um,
Don't say me.
I won't. I've had two, but I won't name them. But I'll tell you a little bit about them. Both of them are quite high profile, and they're all in it for themselves, if I'm honest. And they are very unappreciative because, at the end of the day, you're exposing your audience to them.
Yep.
So then you've got to be very humble and, give as much as you can and give a good show, be thankful. Oh man, it felt so transactional. And it's one of them ones where like, don't meet your heroes kind of things. So I really looked up to these pair and yeah. So yeah, I've had a couple. I've also had a couple who've slipped the net, when they reach out, Steve, and you think, oh, they'd be pretty good. I'll put them on. One lady from America, she was just wild. I thought, I can't put her on. I actually can't put her on. So she kept emailing saying, when's my episode live? When's my episode? Oh, I might have had a few problems with the technical sound quality. So
Do you do any live?
yeah, all the time. Yeah.
I was going to say, have you ever had any shocking live technical issues, like just torpedo you whilst you're on?
Yeah. Can you remember the 8 hours 42 live stream I did with 16 guests back to back? April Fool's Day of last year. That was wild.
Because that was a seamless segue to what I was about to ask you about. So do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, obviously lockdown happened in like the March time, wasn't it? And I think we were just lost. A lot of us were just lost in the business community, in our little network, and the content was drying up. Social media, LinkedIn was just dead. A lot of them just didn't know what to do. Do a stop, do a start, or a furlough. Is this for good? And I just thought, right, I'm going to reach out to people. And it actually gave me some focus, if I'm honest, because my work had stopped as well. I had an invoice for 2 months. So I just thought, right, I'm going to speak to a few people. And then when I reached out to a few people and said, look, I'm going to put this on April Fool's Day. I can't remember what I called it now. Let's get back or something. Back to bit. I can't remember what I called it now. And then everyone said they would do it, because normally everyone's like, well, I can't make next week, mate, but I know next time. And then, but of course, 16 people who were doing nothing, because everyone was doing nothing, said yes. So it went ahead. And
see, I thought it was just you getting drunk with Jeff Cam, talking about Star Wars and stuff.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 8 hours, but an extra 42 minutes of drinking with Jeff at the end. I was punch drunk, actually. I was absolutely flagging. I was so tired. Normally we do sort of 2 to 3 hour little mini conferences once every couple of months. I've got a couple of booked in. I've got a third sector one and an art specific one. And you'll know yourself, Steve, it's quite tiring, isn't it, to speak to somebody, but then you're now thinking about what question you're going to ask me, even though you're trying to listen to me. And then you're looking for little segues and, I'll go off on that little tangent. It's tiring. 16 people back to back. And of course, I didn't know what they did. I had like my local MP on, I had Alfie Joey on, lots of like quite diverse people talking about different stuff. And I'm like trying to hold my own.
I don't think people appreciate how difficult it is. I had someone critique me or give me notes on something that I was doing to do with a live stream or something. And it's like, I don't have a producer. So I have to make sure it's technically all working, talk to someone at the same time as checking the stream, read my questions, read the comments that come in at the same time, and still be engaged. It's tough, but that's why I appreciate your craft, because it is difficult.
And you're live as well, which has its own nerves, because as soon as you press that button, the nerves start to kick in. Will I say the wrong thing? I mean, you never do, but you'll just start. The mind's so strange when you're live, because all sorts of things will be flying and stuff. So it's really interesting. It's a bit like being a speaker and someone at the end saying, I really enjoyed that. What I want people to say is, which bits did you really enjoy? What bits did you not? But feedback is a gift, and you don't need to take the wrapping off it. So if someone gives you some feedback, I want them to kind of say, look, do you want some feedback? But sometimes people give you it and it's like, it's a bit harsh. I didn't ask for that.
Anyway, what's the dream? Either it could be personally, professionally, business wise, climb Everest.
Yeah, I think I'm potentially going to do Kilimanjaro,
Nice.
but Everest would be good, and everyone knows that I've always wanted to do it. And my parents know that if I get to the top, I'm quite happy if I don't come back down again. My mum's like, "No, you what?" I love adventure. I
Imagine
really,
what a
really.
story that is, though.
Oh man. Well, do you know what it is as well? Actually, there's a lot of adventurers now doing other things because Everest is a very commercial. There's literally a wire you clip yourself on, and people
Yeah.
drag you for 80 grand or whatever. Um, the dream for me is basically like this. I'm absolutely loving this. I've got, a couple of young girls working for us at the moment who are absolutely inspire me, who have just blew me away in this last year on how quickly they're adapting and picking stuff up. And just like what I said back at the start, because this is all new, you don't need 10 or 20 years experience in it. You can literally come in young and start to really hit the ground running. I want 20 of them. I want 30 of them within the next few years. I really do.
How did you hire them or find them? I'm intrigued.
I really wanted to go down the apprenticeship route. I wanted to take someone young and do what I didn't have. I didn't want them to have a bad career. I want them to have a good culture. I want them to just be happy at work. If they are, that's what makes me happy. Seeing other people happy makes me happy. And that sounds really cliche and a bit cringy, but it just isn't. I love it. And I wanted to get them in young and kind of just, I didn't want to shoehorn them and say, right, or pigeonhole them and say, that's what you do. I'm like, what do you fancy? What do you fancy doing? And let's do that then. And it's dead exciting. I've got no idea where this is going, but I'm going to let them push it.
No, because what I try and do is that I'm a watcher. So, for instance, the first time I met Paul Lancaster, I just sat at the back of the room for Founders Friday and just watch. But actually, both digitally on social media and stuff, I look for the doers, and it's the people, because I know how hard it is, that when you see people putting their own neck on the line to launch a new product or launch a podcast or run an event or do anything public, I watch and I try and celebrate them. But likewise, I know that they're the people I want to work with. It's not the people that have the CV or have the job title or whatever. And I've on the back of my mind, I know probably about 5 or 6 people that I'm kind of just watching their careers. And at the right point, depending on how my stuff going, I'll be like, do you want to work together? And it's just, but it's all about,
cool.
I like, even if they try and something and fail, if I like them, because it's that you can't kind of fake or something. Yeah. Cool. Well, very conscious. We've been talking for a while, which I know we do this relevant, but anyway, it's cool. In every interview, I always love to ask a first few questions. And it's funny, actually, I got interviewed the other day and I asked the same question, but anyway, I own it. What's the best advice you've ever had?
I just did a post on this last week on LinkedIn. It's the best and worst from my father. And actually, when I put the post out, everybody else started putting their advice in as well, which happened to be from their father. So isn't it great how much they influence us? And he gave me the worst and the best. Worst one was, once you become a boss, you can't be everyone's friend, which I don't take that on board. Because if people take a lend of you, it's on them, not you. It's they've done something wrong, not you. So, I try to be a good leader. And also you've got to look at yourself in the mirror, so be humble, don't step on anybody and just play a straight bat, really.
No, it's funny. When you were saying about the father thing, so my parents got divorced when I was like 9 or 10. So I didn't necessarily grow up with a father, but my mum was my big role model. And I think the big thing that I got from her was that she was a din lady for a long time. Then she worked on security, and basically she balanced like 2 or 3 jobs to pay for me and my brother to kind of go to uni. But it was that work ethic. Like even on Christmas Day, she'd be working and we'd sleep in and we'd get up and we'd have Christmas at like 12 when she got back. But it was almost where I think it's what you're exposed to when you're young is what almost guides you. Actually, really interesting. Have you ever had a masterclass? It's like an online app stroke website stroke thing where basically Gordon Ramsay teaches cooking and Annie Leibovitz teaches photography and stuff. Anyway, and one of the ladies on it is Anna Winter, that is the creative director at Condé Nast, and she was the person in Vogue. Like, have you ever seen Devil Wears Prada? She was the woman behind that, which she got a bad rap with. But anyway, but she learnt her craft when she was like 16, 17. Her dad was an editor in a newspaper. And she kind of got dumped with the jobs that nobody else wanted to do. But, without a degree, she just learned on the tools, the hard way. And she just did it. So the point that when she actually fashion took off and she got successful. But that work ethic that she learned from her dad, and one of the interesting things was she was saying that back in, this was like the 60s and 70s, I think they had 14 different editions of a newspaper that they had to get out every day, which was from the Racing Post in the morning all the way through. So her dad was just like decision, and it just embedded in her. But what was interesting was that although I knew of the character, it was only when I really learned more about her story, I really kind of bought into it. And I think that's something that you get with podcasts or live streams or long form content, that there'll be people that might not have known you before this, but to be like, I quite like that guy. I quite like his approach. And you just don't get that with little clips or text or whatever.
Yeah.
If you were to give advice to your younger self, and I promise this is the last question, what would it be?
Just do it. That's it. I always live by that Nike motto. I love it. I always say it's 30 years old. It's a catch-all, no matter what your ability is or anything, just do it.
Simple. Is there anything you would like to talk about, plug, anything before you go?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of plugging anything because I don't
Plug
want
your own
anything off anyone.
podcast. Plug it.
Well, you can see in Industry Angels, my podcast, but I'm just humbled that you've asked me to come on your show, Steve. You're doing so well, so thank you so much. But I don't want anything off anybody.
But the thing is, the reason why is because I knew you'd be able to add value. Likewise, there's a lot of people that want to pick your brains. And what's always interesting, I find this from my wife, is that people like to hear the same information from different people. It's almost like a sense check. So the amount of times that I've said to my wife, it'd be a really good idea if you did this, and she'll just like poo-poo it. Then one of her friends will say exactly the same thing. And she's like, I took this advice. So I knew that you would help inspire people about the wonder of putting yourself out there and doing stuff.
Yeah, putting yourself out there is a great thing. I'm a huge advocate for content creation. So if anybody is watching and they're thinking about starting something, just grab your phone, put yourself out there, get yourself on LinkedIn. There's no haters, right? No one's out there going to hate on you. Just get it done.
Cool. Well, what time are we on? We are virtually on the hour. I really appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. I loved all the backstory and almost listening to your journey and how you got there. And likewise, almost, some of the swapping stories about why you podcast and why you do things, because everyone's got different reasons. But actually, there's a lot of benefits to it. And basically, thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Can I have a quick one to you? Can I ask you a quick question?
You can ask me whatever you want.
You talk about your mum there. Is your mum still around?
Yes.
When your mum asks you what you do, what do you say to
her? It's funny when I'll be 100% honest with you. So my mum didn't go to uni. She's very bright, but she's just at the age and stuff, she was never given the opportunity to do that. When I said that I wanted to go to uni and do mechanical engineering, as in like a master's degree to design jet engines and stuff, she thought that meant like fix tills and, be a mechanic type hands-on stuff. And it was, and she understood when I graduated and went into construction, because she understood what that was. But when I went back to do a PhD, she's very supportive, but she doesn't necessarily understand the technical bit. And to be honest, as long as I'm happy, that's all she cares about. But nice. What do I tell? So it's funny that I know she doesn't watch these, but actually she probably kind of does. I don't know. But I think we've got that kind of relationship where it's not that she never says well done, but she doesn't have to. We've got a really good relationship. We speak every other day or so. And it's a mutual respect kind of thing. And the acid test, ironically, is that if she died tomorrow, would I be okay with it? And I would, because there's nothing that's unsaid. Does that make sense?
I've often said that, yeah.
And it's that balance where, that's not true with everyone. But it's
if they've had a good life as well and had a good innings, then you don't feel like they're being cheated. So you could be at peace with it. But I'll tell you what it is, when that time comes, I'm going to be a wreck because I'm a huge fan of my mum.
I've got another random question for you. It might get very morbid though. You were saying before about how aims and goals and ambitions and stuff. One of the things that I've started to think, and this might be really bad, is that I love being active and, using my brain and that kind of thing. I'm really scared about one day, where I lose independence or brain function or whatever. And it's almost where I don't know if I want to live to 110. It's almost where there's things I want to achieve. And actually growing up, it's funny, actually, when I was probably about 17, I wrote a list of loads of things I'd love to do. One of which I've never been arrested. I've always wanted to get arrested one day.
Well, I can sort that out for you. Yeah, carry on, keep going.
But Everest was one of them. But the point is, it's almost where at a certain point, I hope that I will have at least tried everything I want to do, even if I fail at it.
Yeah.
I'll be like, you know what, I'm done. I'm good. And then I'll give all my money to a cat's home or something. But it's just
Fabulous.
Anyway, cool.
I was just going to say the one thing that worries me is not being able to do what I want to do, because I just can't. I love leaping, jumping, riding, throwing, swimming. But you know, it is. We're getting younger and younger as we get older. So a letter from the king, Steve, that's what we'll be getting.
Oh, maybe. Cool. Well, I appreciate your time. I promise I'll end the call now. But it's a pleasure to kind of catch up, and hopefully I will see you around. And as soon as I get my photos from Chris Owens, I'm sure you'll see them as well.
I'll be getting a signed copy. Thanks, Steve.
No worries. All right. Cheers, mate. Thank you. Oh, and it didn't connect, so I'm going to do it.